Hello, everybody. It's the Historical Gamer once again, and today I'm returning to part number 2 of a new series looking at a game that's currently in early access on Steam called Cauldrons of War, Barbarossa. This is a turn-based strategy game that puts you in the shoes basically of either the supreme commander of all Soviet or German or, I guess, Axis forces in World War II on the Eastern Front from the beginning of Operation Barbarossa till the Soviet counteroffensive in front of Moscow in January of 1942. It's a really interesting game that basically does what a lot of war games don't. And what I mean by that is it gives you very limited decision-making ability. And that's a good thing, I think, because what it really is doing is it's making you feel like you're making the actual decisions that a field marshal would be making. You know, most war games have this tendency to jump in and micromanage everything. Move this brigade here, move that regiment here, attack this way, fire into the flank, use the artillery, use the 81 millimeter mortars. You know, where you're diving into tactical level detail that a supreme commander of a front of millions of soldiers is not going to be doing. In this game, you basically assign troops to different operations, to different army groups. You do tell them what to do, but it's more vague. It's, I want the 2nd Panzergruppen to launch a Blitzkrieg attack. I want the Air Force units and Army Group Central to attempt to obtain air superiority. I want them to pin this enemy mechanized formation. I want the infantry formations to, launch a heavy artillery barrage, and then I want the 2nd Army to launch an assault. Like that, those are the types of orders you're giving in this game, and I think it's really interesting and refreshing. It also makes it the type of game that you can play in 2.5 hours from start to finish, if you want to do that. So it's a really interesting game. I won't say it's super approachable because the UI doesn't always communicate everything super efficiently, but to anyone who's played a war game before, I will say that I think it's easy to pick up and play. I've played it about 8 hours. I feel relatively competent in it. There are things that I wish it told me a little bit more about why things are what I should be doing or why things are happening the way they're happening. But generally speaking, this is an approachable war game and something that I'm really enjoying, and I hope you guys enjoy as well. But that's enough of me rambling. I've been going for like 2 minutes about this, and we haven't even really been jumping into the gameplay. Everything you've seen so far is gameplay from my last episode. So at this point, we're just going to move on to turn number 2 of our attack on the Soviet Union. We're playing as the Germans, and we're just going to join the live stream that I was conducting at this point up already in progress. So I hope you guys enjoy. Leave your thoughts down below, and let's get going. And now we're moving into turn number 2. Barbarity went from 1 to 4. Remember, the first perks for the Soviet Army are at 15, so we're not yet there. It does look like we've got the 2 fronts open here in northern Finland. It says Norway, but really it's Finland, I think. We've got two units here, the Gerberstager 2 and 3 facing off against the Soviet 14th Infantry Division, and then they have the 52nd Division in reserve. And then further south on the Polarfuchs operation, which is the ability to try and cut the rail line to Murmansk, the Soviets have the 122nd, the 104th, the 1st Tank Division, and the 54th Division. These are divisions, remember, so they're smaller forces. Here we have the Finnish 3rd Corps, the SS Division in the north, and then the 169th Division. We only have 3 command points in Norway. We have no troops in reserve in Norway. I think what we're going to do is we're going to start operations here. Both these units have 1 artillery and 1... I don't know. So these guys are dug in. These are like identical units. So I guess I'll go ahead and... I'll try and shell these guys, see if it does anything. Didn't really look like it did anything. And we'll start a breakthrough operation. So I can't actually attack this turn, but I did use 1 point... Or wait, yes I can actually. So I can either bombard them again or attack. I'm going to go ahead and attack. You can see here, it was an effective attack. We didn't lose any casualties. By the way, we haven't lost any casualties in our attacks yet. But you can see an infantry attack, not very effective in terms of progress gained, only 1% gain, but we did destroy 1 enemy artillery, and we hurt their cohesion by 3. So you can see the Soviet unit here, their cohesion is at 1 star, and their general is actually pretty competent there, so interesting. Zendrokov TV, or Zeni Droid TV. Wow, that was mispronounced. Thank you very much for the follow. It's appreciated. Yeah, Tin Flash, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I think they're definitely trying to drive home the emotional side of the Second World War on the Eastern Front with all of these, like, horrific items that you have to make decisions on. That's definitely the intent anyway. All right, so Finland has two fronts here. We've got the Karelian Isthmus operation, and we've got the Karelia operation. The Karelia operation, we're facing the 7th Soviet Army and the Leningrad fortified regions, with the Karelian army, which is a pretty strong army of 9 infantry, 2 artillery. We don't have air superiority here. We'll go ahead and try and gain it. I don't want them bombing me. So we now have air superiority over the front. The Soviet Union loses 3 planes in the attacks. And then what I'm going to do is I still have 2 command points, so I'm going to go ahead and shell. And then we're going to go ahead and break through, which I can't really do anything. But we did damage their frontier region with our artillery there. You can see this arrow, this static defensive line switch to an arrow. It means I can't attack on the Karelian Isthmus front, where the 2 Finnish corps are facing against the Soviet army and defended fortified regions. Was this the one that had the cohesion penalty? Security Corps 101, or was it 102? Wherever it was. I'm not going to pull any reserves for it yet. Let's go ahead and move to the northern front. So you can see, what did the Soviets do this turn? Well, the Soviets launched an air attack against our air superiority. So remember, we gained air superiority here before. That air attack allowed them to change the air superiority status from Axis over to disputed. We lost 1 aircraft in the attack. They lost 4. So it actually favored us pretty well. Meanwhile, there was an armored counterattack by the 3rd Mechanized Corps versus the 18th German Army. They gained no ground. That's what the 0% represents. We lost no units over here. We lost no cohesion. The Soviet counterattack, meanwhile, lost 3 armored units, no artillery, 1 infantry, and 9 cohesion. That was a very bad result for them. The 3rd Mechanized Corps, meanwhile, chose to use a command point to restore communications. And then there was another armored counterattack by the 3rd Mechanized Corps against the 18th Army. So they attacked the 18th Army twice with armored counterattacks. Again, 0% success. 2 tanks lost, 7 cohesion. We lost nothing. So both those counterattacks were good results for us, although they might have used the 18th Army's ammunition up a bit. It looks like they still have 2 and 2, so they're doing okay there. Also, looks like we have the new Lithuanian partisans here. They're currently in reserve. They only have 1 infantry unit, but they're there in any event. We're at 32% of the way there. Air superiority is disputed. I have, how many aircraft? 6 aircraft to use. I'm going to use my aircraft to gain air superiority, I suppose. What do I have again? 6, and I need 2 for the attack. 5 airfield attacks would be 5, so we'll just do air superiority. You can see the Soviets lose 3 planes to R1 again. That seems to be the typical response early war caps, but we now have air superiority again. And then we'll go ahead and launch our Blitzkrieg attack with our armored unit, which still has exposed flanks, but it's not isolated, so it can launch another Blitzkrieg attack. We gain 24% of our operation there. We wipe out the Soviet 8th Army. We also capture fuel depots, giving us +1 fuel for the unit, and we captured the enemy trucks. 3 infantry, 4 cohesion lost. We can do a deep raid, which will push our advance further. It doesn't actually use any fuel. It won't really damage the enemy, but it does give us rapid progress in terms of our gains on territory. The other thing here is, look, there's no ammunition down here, so we are out of ammo. So I no longer can attack where it would, like, where I have to use, I can't reverse my front or anything like that. I would have to use a command point to resupply these guys with trucks. Also, because they're isolated and with exposed flanks, that does give the likelihood that those trucks may get intercepted and destroyed or damaged in their advance. But first things first, let's go ahead and have our infantry follow up with assaults here. You can see we wiped out the Soviets' 12th Mechanized Corps. It ceases to exist, and we captured 5 trucks. That's 2 enemy units wiped out. We also captured the bridges over the Dneva intact without combat. A solid bridgehead was established on the other side of the river. So even though this is a river hex, that gives us an unusually high amount of progress here. We get 10% progress here. And then we can go ahead and with our 18th Army, I'm going to launch another assault. We're going to gain 12% more. We wipe out the Baltic Fortified Region Command, so 3 of their units here with the skull representing the units being destroyed. 3 infantry and 4 cohesion lost. 12% more progress on our operation. And so we have 1 command point left. We can choose to attack again, which I believe would end up attacking the Soviet reserve unit here. Or we can go with the deep raid with our armored unit to try and complete the operation more quickly. So I'll do that, and you can see there the armored unit gained 24% progress on the operation. We got to 100%. The operation is complete, and we now move on to the next operation on this front. Whew, lots of talking. All right, so now we have two fronts in the north. You can see the map is advanced further east, and now there is the Tillinian Road, which involves the 16th Army facing off against the Soviet 27th Army, driving on Tallinn on the Baltic coast. And then we have the Luga Road, which is a drive toward Leningrad. I don't have any command points left. There are no Soviet troops in front of me right now. This is another thing where it's always great to try and manage your command points better than I just did, because if I had command points left and there's no enemy units opposing me on an operation, there's actually there's an option called progress, which basically just means your troops advance unopposed. And so like you can gain 20-30% per command point without losses toward your objectives. And while things are moving pretty smoothly right now, I think that's something that we'll see as we progress further into this game. Things really start to slog down and become a slower process of advance. And so it's always a good idea to have command points left to gain free territory. Of course, I didn't know they had no troops left there. If we look at the northwest front as well, we can see they do have the 22nd Army in reserve here, so I would expect them to move that army to stop our advance as well. They could also pull some of these mechanized corps out of the Leningrad front and shift them south as well. So, that's the northern front. All done. We completed the operation. We now have to drive into Lenin or the Luga Road toward Leningrad. That moves us back to Army Group Center. If we take a look here, the enemy launched an air superiority strike. 4 losses for them, 1 for us. They changed the air superiority over to disputed. The 20th Mechanized Corps launched an armored counterattack against Panzergruppen 3. We lost nothing. They lost 1 tank, 2 cohesion. The 17th Mechanized Corps also launched a counterattack here against the 9th German Army. We also lost nothing. They lost 1 armored unit, 2 cohesion, and they spent another command point on the 17th Mechanized Corps, restoring communications. So you can see they've got quite a few troops still laid out here. We have, how many air units? We have 6 air units left. We have 2 armored units that both can launch. Oh, these guys are still isolated. And they have no, because they're isolated, they didn't retrieve ammunition. So I'm actually going to go ahead and use 1 command point to send trucks forward to resupply them. You can see we lost 5 trucks that were intercepted in the operation. They did get the ammunition here, but they lost 5 trucks in the process here. So, you know, they reduced the mobility. You need to manage your truck resources carefully. In any event, that did that. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to launch an air superiority strike on the enemy. You can see we destroyed 3 aircraft, lose 1. We now have air superiority, which allows me to go back to my 2nd Panzergruppen and launch a Blitzkrieg strike. We destroyed 2 infantry, 2 artillery, 7 infantry, 4 cohesion. We rout the 3rd Army, destroy a lot of their equipment, and they leave it behind. And then we have 2 command points left, so I'm going to go ahead and launch an assault with one of my infantry units here. You can see we wiped out the 20th Mechanized Corps, captured 2 more trucks, so while we lost 5 trucks in that other attack, we gained 2 back on our end. Destroyed 1 infantry, 3 cohesion. We gained 5% progress, and so our objectives are now complete. And so I can't do anything more with the rest of these units here. We now move on to the next front, which is the Smolensk Road. That's the next attack. We have 1 more command point that we can use it with. And actually, my armored units now are able to continue attacking here, although I only have 1 command point, so I can't really do a whole lot with them. I do, at least in theory, have the ability to do some resupplies or things like that. Because I have 1 command point left. A bunch of enemy troops are, I think, surrounded. I think that's what Kessel means. The army is surrounded by the enemy and cut off from its supplies. If it can't break through or sneak through enemy lines, it will be eliminated or surrender en masse when they no longer have the means to defend themselves. So they're currently surrounded. What I'm going to do right now with my 1 remaining command point, I'm actually going to launch a refit here, which will use 1 of our railway points here. So you can see we have 4 out of 4 railway points can be used. I'm going to use a refit for this armored unit because it has no fuel or ammo. Refits will give you both. So we gain 2 cohesion, which didn't matter because we were still at full. We gain 1 ammunition, 1 fuel. So this unit, the 2nd Panzergruppen, will be ready to attack next turn. As well as the 3rd Panzergruppen as well, so we can continue our drive on the Soviet front here. So Army Group Center is now shifting over, at least temporarily, to a defensive footing as we approach Smolensk on the road to Moscow. Can the game be quick or drawn out over a longer period of time? I played through the game entirely last night in about 2 hours. It may be... I think the intent of this game is to be something that's not like War in the East, which takes weeks and weeks and weeks to play a game through, if not years, depending on whether you're playing a human or AI. I think the intent is for this to be something a little bit simpler and easier to just pick up and play, while also having a fair bit of variables and things that you need to consider. What I will say is that this game is playing way slower right now because I'm talking through everything I'm doing. You definitely don't need to do that. I do wonder how much replayability the game has, just because once you figure out, and I haven't yet, I've played 2 or 3 times, and I've played 3 full games. I'm working on my 4th now that you're watching, and I have not yet cracked the code on how to win a victory for the Germans. The closest I got was a draw. There are 3 different scenarios with all different things you can play. You can play as the Germans or as the Soviets, but I do wonder how much replayability the game will have once you figure out some of the mechanics, because it's very puzzly, as you can see as I'm playing through this. That being said, the game is only $4 or $5 right now on Steam, so and it's only in early access, so some of my statements may change. They may add more scenarios or other things like that. I don't really know what they're all planning on adding. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and look at Army Group South now, which still has 5 command points and is important. So this turn, the Soviets have a lot of action points apparently on the Kiev front or on the Ukraine front. You can see here that the USSR gained air superiority down here. They lost 3 aircraft, we lost 1. They also counterattacked against the 6th Army with the 8th Mechanized Corps. They lost 4 tanks and 8 cohesion, so not a good result for them. Their 15th, and we lost nothing. Their 15th Corps also counterattacked the 6th Army. They lost 2 tanks and 7 cohesion. We lost nothing. So again, bad result for them. An armored counterattack occurred again by the 9th Mechanized Corps against the 6th Army. They really focused on the 6th Army. 3 armored units, 5 cohesion lost, nothing on our end. So good results. Some of these units were previously surrounded, by the way. 15th Mechanized Corps restored communications, and so did the 9th Mechanized Corps. Meanwhile, we've got bandits here, so you can see bandits of desperate and helpless Red Army deserters and fugitives loot the convoys. These attacks are isolated and poorly organized, but increase the number of trucks lost during Axis resupply operations, so that's something we need to be aware of. There are operations to conduct cleaning operations, sort of to clear out your rear. Usually you want to use some of your weaker units, like maybe the Ukrainian sort of partisans who have joined us to do those operations. We also have urban fighting, which means that it will slow down our offensive operations, and we're fighting in the Pripyat marshes, which also slows us down. All things we need to factor. All right, so Blitzkrieg, or they did regain air superiority, so I'm going to use 1 point here to at least contest air superiority here. So they lose 2 aircraft, we lose 1, and it changes to disputed. I'm hoping they don't have a lot, because we destroyed a bunch of their aircraft on the ground. Meanwhile, that still leaves me with 4 aircraft, so I'm going to do a Blitzkrieg attack with the 1st Panzergruppen. 4th Mechanized Corps ceases to exist. Capture 4 trucks, and fuel depots fall into our hands. 26% progress, 1 tank, 1 infantry, 4 cohesion. So good result for us there. We also have the option for a deep raid, which I may do. But we've got 3 more command points, so let's go ahead and launch a few other attacks. Let's use the 6th Army, which seems to be the strongest of our forces here. I'm just going to assault them generally. We wipe out the 5th Cavalry there, 2 infantry, 4 cohesion, gain 6% progress. And now I can either choose to use the 17th Army or the 6th. I think we'll use the 17th because we do have some armor in the attack. But I can attack with either one. I just don't want to wear out the 6th, so let's attack with the 17th as well. And we gain 5% here. We wipe out the Kiev district fortified region, 3 more Soviet infantry, 3 cohesion. So 3 units have been destroyed in our attacks here so far. We're at 74%. A deep raid might not get us there. It might not get us to the end of the map and driving us forward, and it would also potentially leave me very exposed and isolated out there. I don't have an option to reverse. The only option I have is ammunition resupply, which seems like something I don't want to do. What if I do deep raid? Shit. So we only get 9% further, so that's 83%. My unit now also has stretched lines, so this unit is it's isolated, stretched lines, and exposed flanks. So the enemy could definitely hurt badly the 1st Panzergruppen if it counterattacks it next turn. Wow, they have 49 trucks in that unit? Jeez. So maybe we got more of those because of our raid. I'm not sure, but it's also not going to draw any supply next turn. So we'll have to see what happens there. Kiev is always my bane. It's always the bane of my existence. Yeah, Neuhauser, I think that's one of the interesting things with this game is it is very much like, this is more of like the operational questions that a field marshal would probably have to deal with. They're not microing individual units around. They're giving the strategic guidance of what should happen. And that's kind of what this game is trying to convey. So if we go down here, we'll take a look at the Romanian front. The USSR regained air superiority here. They also inflicted 1 cohesion point penalty on the 3rd Romanian army, although that did take them 2 armored units and 5 cohesion to do it. Let's go ahead and regain air superiority, or at least contest it. It's less important here because I don't have any Blitzkrieg units down on the Romanian front. I don't have any armored units, but I think it's still generally important. They definitely didn't pull any troops back. We're going to go ahead and do a breakthrough operation, and then we're going to go ahead and assault them. So you can see here, we wiped out the 16th Mechanized Corps here. We captured 5 trucks. We've gained a foothold beyond the Prut, and we inflicted 2 tanks and 1 infantry casualty while gaining 6% of our objective there. Each turn is 1 week, high 5. All right. So that's going to do it for turn number 2. Let's move forward to turn number 3. What to do with our prisoners? The prisoners of war are piling up, and we no longer know where to put them or how to keep them and feed them. It is obvious that the sanitary conditions of these camps where Soviet prisoners are crowded with so little space they can barely move and are forced to do their business on the ground are not exactly perfect. It's only a matter of time before an epidemic breaks out. Obviously, treating these prisoners according to the Geneva Conventions would have a very significant effect on our logistics. So this is an interesting decision you have to make. We basically either get to feed the prisoners or starve them, or other means of making us not have to deal with them. So if we starve them, that will obviously increase the barbarism of the campaign, which will make the Soviets fight harder. If we feed them, however, this is a legitimate trade-off where now if we choose to feed them, it will impact our ability to supply our units and our move forward as quickly. So those are our 2 options. We are going to feed, because I'm not a monster. So we are going to feed them, but that does reduce the maximum railroad capacity for Army Group Center by 2, and it was at 4 before. So that basically cuts our supplies in half, and we lose a command point this turn. So that's a pretty big loss there. The one positive is barbarism doesn't go up at all. So barbarism stays at 4, or barbarity stays at 4, but it does, that does suck for Army Group Center, which was going to be starting a new operation on the road to Smolensk. Additionally, it is the heart of summer now, so you can see here we've got a temperature indicator. It's not cold, it is extreme heat. Extreme heat of temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius make the fighting particularly difficult for the troops, so it affects our ability to fight. It's on a large river, it's in swamp terrain, urban terrain, and there's bandits. Not a good situation in Army Group Center's front right now. Meanwhile, the 11th Mechanized Corps of the Soviets, which was surrounded, attempted a counterattack, lost a whole bunch of cohesion, and gained nothing. The 6th Corps had its communications restored. The 6th Mechanized Corps launched a counterattack against the 4th Army, lost 7 cohesion points, and did no damage. So there's still 3 Soviet units here that are surrounded. Meanwhile, the 6th Mechanized Corps, the 11th Mechanized Corps, and the 17th Mechanized Corps all surrendered down here, as well as the 3rd Army. So we gained a whole bunch of prisoners down here. You can see each one of these units, which was surrounded previous surrounded the previous turn, surrendered. And we have 3 more units, the 14th Mechanized, the NKVD Border Guards, and the 4th Army also surrounded at the moment. So, air superiority is disputed. I'm going to go ahead and use 1 command point on breakthrough operations. You can see both our armored units have exposed flanks, but they're not actually, isolated. I've got 3 more command points. I'm going to go ahead and do a Blitzkrieg operation. We routed the 4th Army. We didn't wipe them out. We gained 4% progress there, so not a ton. We'll do another Blitzkrieg operation down here, gained 8%, and we routed the 14th Corps. So you can see both these corps are routed. They'll probably surrender next turn. They're not fully destroyed yet. And then we will, both these units are isolated, but they're out of ammo and fuel, so they won't be able to attack again next turn. Also, probably because they're isolated, they won't be able to attack next turn. So I'm going to go ahead and assault. And you can see here we wiped out the 4th Army, which was on the left here, captured 2 trucks, 2 infantry, 5 cohesion. We made 14% progress on the way towards Smolensk. We're up to 26%. The air superiority stayed disputed. I didn't do anything there. They didn't do anything there. We've begun our drive on Smolensk. Groggy Grognard, yes, there are conditions. I have both lost decisively and I think a minor defeat and then a draw in my 3 playthroughs so far. It's based on what you take. So Leningrad is worth points. Moscow is worth points. If you take both Kiev and Kharkov, you get points for that. If you take Kharkov before they're able to evacuate their industry, you gain points. If you take both Odessa and Sevastopol, you gain points. If you control the entire Baltic coast, you gain points. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can gain points in the game. All right, so now let's take a look at Army Group North. We have air superiority in Army Group North, at least in one of the territories. No fighting occurred in either of these sectors, but you did see that the Soviets did send one of their new armies to the front. So the 22nd Army here did arrive at the front on the Luga Road. Meanwhile, on the Tallinn Road, the 27th Army faces off against the German 16th Army. So in this campaign, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use a breakthrough here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to see what an assault does. So we routed them, gained 10%. I'm going to attack one more time. All right, so we wiped out... Oh, so here you go. Here's the example here. We wiped out the 27th Army. It ceases to exist. We captured their trucks. We gained 12%. And now there's no more enemy units remaining, so we can just progress on the way to Tallinn. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. We gain 20% as the army moves forward without any resistance at all. We're up to 42%. I could move another 20% this turn. I'm going to wait to do that. You can see Tallinn is now surrounded. And I'm going to go ahead and move to the other front here. And I think what I'm going to do... the air superiority situation is disputed here. I think I'm going to go ahead. I can use one command point to switch this attack over to breakthrough. I can just use 3 aircraft to airlift supplies forward here. Stretched lines and exposed flank. 18th Army. Just go ahead and shell them. So we impact their cohesion here by launching artillery against them. I don't have enough points to really begin the drive in earnest there. I guess I'm already 26%. Oh, no, that was the central front. Yeah, I don't have the initiative points, if you will, to continue the drive there. Meanwhile, Army Group South near Kiev, the Soviets regained air superiority here. They counterattacked the 6th Army, lost 2 armored, 4 cohesion. They also So they didn't actually attack our armor. Interesting. They chose to attack our 6th Army, and they were the worse for wear in both cases. So first things first, I always want to have air superiority, or I always want to at least have disputed air superiority, primarily because I need to resupply units a lot of times by air, and you lose a crap ton of aircraft if you do that without air superiority. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and launch a general infantry assault here. So we'll go ahead and shell the enemy first. So we inflict 1 artillery, 1 infantry, 1 truck casualty, as well as cohesion. And then we're going to go ahead and attack with the 6th Army. We wipe out the enemy 26th Army. We gain 0% ground, but we do wipe out an enemy army. And then we'll go ahead and assault with another unit down here. Heavy enemy casualties, but we don't wipe any armies out. So I'll assault again. We wipe out the 15th Soviet Mechanized Corps, capture 5 trucks, destroy 2 tanks, 1 infantry, 4 cohesion. We gain 7% of the way there, so we're up to 90% toward this objective, but you can see the Ukrainian front is moving slowly. Okay. The good thing is both these armies are still in good shape on the attack. These guys are isolated, stretched, and exposed, which is not great. I probably should have done something about that, but we did wipe out 2 of the enemy armies and badly damaged a 3rd. They could counterattack with any of these other forces, though, so we'll have to see what they do. Meanwhile, the Romanian front down near Odessa, you can see the 2nd Mechanized Corps attacked the Romanian 11th Army and actually inflicted 1 infantry casualty. They lost 3 armored units and 3 cohesion. They also attacked the 3rd Romanian Army and didn't do anything there. So air superiority is disputed here. I'll live with disputed. I just don't want it to be in their favor. And then I'm just going to go ahead and launch an assault. Maybe we should use artillery. Let's actually bombard them first. Did nothing. Great. So I wiped out the 2nd Mechanized Corps. I resupplied my troops with ammunition, then launched that attack, gained 7% there, so we're 13% of the way toward Odessa. 1 more Soviet unit destroyed. Meanwhile, the Finnish front, air superiority is disputed here. Soviet units of the 7th Army in Leningrad Fortress regions launched attacks against the Karelian Army and achieved very little. Actually, it looks like they might have even destroyed themselves. The Leningrad unit may have been destroyed. It was. It's no longer here. So we'll go ahead and I think we will... Let's do this. Let's go ahead and do an air bombardment. So you can see we impact their cohesion while losing 0 aircraft, so they lose 1 cohesion. Their unit has no cohesion, by the way, the 7th Army. So now I'm going to go ahead and infiltrate. I'm not really sure what infiltration does. It says a passage could be found unexploited. The attacker's army is now positioned to ravage the rear of its adversary, and we'll go ahead and assault. So again, these things all influence how effective the enemy can be, but it looks like we actually surrounded the enemy unit. We routed them. They're kesseled, so they're surrounded. And we inflicted heavy casualties on them. So I'm hoping, unless the Soviets send in reinforcements there, we should be able to wipe out the 7th Army and advance deep east of Leningrad. Meanwhile, on the Norwegian front, last thing for this turn, we've got 3 command points on the Norwegian front. You can see the Soviets launched some attacks here. The 14th Infantry Division attacked our troops here. They didn't lose any casualties. They did lose cohesion, though, the enemy units. So the units they attacked here is the 2nd GURBS, which is still at full cohesion and command quality. They have the 52nd Division in reserve, and the 14th Division was the one that was attacking. It has stretched lines, and it has exposed flanks. The 2nd GURBS and 3rd GURBS are both up here. It looks like they must have stopped my offensive. No, they didn't. So why can't I attack? Oh, I have no ammunition, so I've got to go ahead and use trucks. So you can see we lost no trucks, by the way, in resupplying these troops. And then we'll go ahead and assault, I guess. So we wiped out the Soviet 14th Division in the north here. It ceases to exist. We captured 1 enemy truck. We did lose 1 cohesion point, and I think that's the first time we've lost a casualty on our attacks. The Soviets lost 1 infantry, 2 cohesion. We got 3% of the way there. So this unit's destroyed. That'll bring the 52nd forward probably next turn. Norway, meanwhile, still has 1 more turn. So we'll go ahead and I think we'll just go ahead and bring forward some trucks for some ammunition. Heavy traffic has led to huge traffic jams. Supplying by road will cost you more trucks this turn. Okay, good to know. All right, so that's the end of, what is this, turn number 3? Barbarity's still at 4, and we're making some decent progress in the center and north of the Soviet Union. We're also making some progress toward Murmansk. All right, and before we move into turn number 4, let's go ahead and wrap this episode up. We've been going for about a half an hour. Again, this was taken from a live stream from my Twitch channel. Hope you guys are enjoying the video. Leave your thoughts down below, as always. And without further ado, until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying, once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'm out.